Hey y'all, my name is Cindy Lou and I am the creatrix of this channel. I want to thank you for stopping by to check out this video and of course take a look around, see if there's anything else that piques your curiosity and makes you think differently or gives you a shift in perspective that you have been looking for. Now today I just wanted to talk about something that we all know as Karens, which are these overbearing, entitled, irrational, and very confrontational women. Basically, this is the woman who's mad because the coupon she wants to use is expired, and she's going to argue with the cashier to get a manager to honor it regardless. And this is like Barbecue Becky, who called the police on two African Americans who were grilling in a park, and it made complete national news. Now, the underlying factor I would say with Karens is the fact that they don't realize, they don't perceive their actions as being one that is wrong. They feel justified in what they are doing. They feel justified in treating someone like shit. They feel justified in throwing their tantrums to get their way. And I really want to address why. Why did this happen? How do we have this whole generation of predominantly older women who act this way, who feel that it's acceptable, who feel no remorse for their actions? They don't even seem to be embarrassed when they're called out on their behavior. And I really want us to think about it as a part of a generational wounding or trauma that has happened to women on the collective level. So when I think about Karens, I think about somebody who's entitled. I think about somebody who is demanding, and they have no sense of how their behavior is damaging to someone else. And so I want to address those concerns as to how they got that way themselves, who's the cause for that, and how we can move forward and help this whole generation of women heal, which of course, who doesn't want less Karens, right? But overall, just really kind of addressing how this has occurred in our society and how moving forward we can treat and offer compassion to them, which is not going to be easy because they make it very easy to really want to just, because they are so irrational, because they are so bold, and they are so demanding and entitled. And I think the reason why that has happened is because if you look at society, in all honesty, I feel that the patriarchy and this patriarchal society that they have been brought up in, more so than my generation. I'm 40, so 80s baby. I was brought up, after the 70s, and it was love and peace, and the 80s were very colorful and vibrant. And I remember there being this slogan when I was young that was like, "What's your sign?" And I didn't understand it at the time, how that was kind of considered a pickup line. And now as I'm older, I realized that was a reference to astrology and how astrology people, based on what it was, could be more compatible. So the mindset of my generation and the generation before me is very different than these older women who have been brought up where a lot of the times, women were like children. They were supposed to be seen but not heard. They had very limited duties in how they could spend their lives. It was very much a responsibility to the home, a responsibility to the children, a responsibility to keep a husband and a household running without any regard to what that role was doing to the spirit of that woman. And I feel that there's a huge amount of them who are just harboring a large amount of bitterness and regret and anger and possibly grief at how their lives have turned out when that was not what they dreamed of. That was not them being considered first. And it was someone who always had to put other people above themselves, put someone else's needs above themselves. So how does that translate into them then being this wild, crazy ass, annoying Karen in public? Well, when they feel like they are being slighted, or they feel like something small is not going their way, in their minds, I believe, they feel justified to act out on whoever is around them, because whoever is around them is not going to be the same people who are in their household making decisions, giving them rules, giving them restrictions, expecting them to be in this role, this perfect, nurturing, caring, on top of it, sacrifices herself role. When they get out in public and they are expecting something to happen a certain way and it doesn't, then they feel justified in their actions to be like, well, what the fuck? Like, all I want is 30 cents off of my peas. How come this dumb person behind the register can't do it? And is that valid? Their feeling of not being heard, of not having any control over just something as small as that, absolutely is valid. How they are expressing it and to who is not acceptable. It's not appropriate. As we move forward in society, these are things that we have to be willing to call people out on. Like, that is not acceptable behavior. I'm sorry for your personal circumstances that make you feel the way you do. I'm sorry for the dreams that you lost. I'm sorry for the life that you put on hold. I'm sorry about all the obligations and all of the requirements that you have been made to meet. All of the ways that your life has been controlled and ran and stolen from you. I can empathize with that. I can sympathize with that. But I cannot accept the behavior that comes when they are wanting to release that. To me, that is a giant generational wounding and a trauma that needs to be addressed. And it's going to take a lot of inner work from women who are feeling a lot of anger on the inside simply because of how they feel that they've been used, how they feel that they don't matter to the people, the husbands, their families, who they've always sacrificed for, who they have always given to. So when they come up against somebody that they don't know, that has no meaning to them, that is just a random face with a name, that is giving them resistance on something that they are trying to achieve or that they want to do, then you're going to feel that fury. And it's not about the coupon. It's about they finally have an outlet to express their frustration. And their frustration is not about that one thing. That is their frustration coming out from years and years of pent-up rage and not being able to express themselves, at pent-up sadness, at not being able to be who they want to be or do what they want to do. So when someone like Susan at the supermarket puts up a fight over something, or they don't want to do the correct parking spot, for example, I saw an older lady at Target drive up order. She did not have a drive up order, but she chose that first parking spot because it was closest to the store. And as soon as I saw her slinking out because she was trying to be very close to her car, and the fact that she was putting items in and getting in to drive away when it was clearly marked for something else, I know I could feel it off of her that she felt entitled, because what did it fucking matter if she parked in this spot and ran inside and got 3 items when there were all these other spots? That's a sense of entitlement that I'm talking about. And I think if anyone at the store had confronted her about it, it would have been your traditional massive Karen blow up about how it didn't really matter and how she was just going in for a few items. And I think that in some regard, we can all relate to that on some issue in our lives. There's definitely a rule that we are up against that we don't agree with. There's a lot for me that I don't personally agree with, but as an active member in society, I do try to assimilate and act in a way that is valid for how I feel about certain things and how that affects others. It's not a big deal for me if I have to park 3 spaces over to go in and get my shit. Now, there were times when I was in college that I would park in a 45-minute parking spot, and I would park there for like 3 hours, because what's the difference between 1 car in there for 45 minutes or 3 cars in there for 45 minutes in the same time span? That was something that I just didn't care. I didn't understand why it would matter that I move. Now, of course, the flip side of that was anytime I wanted to run in and just needed to run in to grab a form, to get a signature, to do whatever, and those spots were taken, I was like, you motherfuckers, I know one of you have been parked here all day. It's because that's what I had done. So naturally, when I saw that, I projected it onto them. But that's completely unrelated. Back to the Karens, and how they react, where they act out, all of these things is you're going to see what kind of barriers or restrictions they've been up against. I feel like I see a lot of tantrums in the supermarket, but I mean, if they're the ones responsible for the cooking, taking it home, like, of course, they're in supermarkets a lot, right? You've also maybe seen this with different classes where they are racist, like Barbecue Becky, where it was clearly a racial, it clearly was a racial issue for her. If they were white people that were there barbecuing, she wouldn't have had no issue. But why are these black people in her neighborhood about to have this barbecue? Like, that's got to be illegal. They can't be here. So that was very much her issue with race. Now, I strongly believe that racism is taught. I don't think you wake up, you're born, and you automatically hate somebody of a different skin color. If that was the case, children would not interact so easily without somebody putting that into their heads. So this was clearly something that was passed down in her line, either how she was brought up or how her grandparents were brought up, and it's just fed and trickled, and she was never given the opportunity to think about why that would be wrong, because she felt very justified in her actions, so she thought she was in the right. She thought she had a reason to call the police. She thought that this is what anyone would do if they saw this outrageous behavior, right? And so what does that say about her? So for her, I think it would be that, she was trying to enjoy the park or go on a walk or do whatever, and her stigma of black people was that they were up to no good, that she didn't want to see them, that they were in her space where she was trying to have a nice time away from the rest of her world, and it was just an upset in her routine or an upset in her environment that then triggered her to react in an irrational way based on generational wounding or trauma or beliefs that had been passed down. So how do we fix it, right? How do we get to the point where our women are not wounded, where our women are not reacting in these irrational ways to things that look small? But they look small because they are small. But when you've had years and years and years, it is just a volcano that has built up, that is just waiting to blow. And I feel like when we see an act of a Karen, like that's what we're seeing, is we are seeing a woman who, for whatever reason, has just been pushed to a point in her life where she is mentally overstimulated. She is emotionally drained. She is feeling very much Like, not one thing can go right in her life the way she wants when she acts like that. And it's annoying as fuck, right? Nobody wants to see that. Like, nobody wants to deal with a Karen. Like, even just saying a Karen, you know what I'm referring to. But if you can step back and look at it as a larger problem that is affecting the older women in society, and I say older women because that's generally who I see reacting that way. Now, mind you, you don't have to be older to be a Karen. I think that acting out like that is another form of a generational misbehavior that can be passed down. So, for instance, if you grow up in a family and all your women act like that, you see that repeatedly, and there's no recourse from somebody letting them know, hey, that's not okay, you shouldn't do that, then you're going to assume that that's just how we react. We hold everything in. We hold all of it until one thing ticks us off, and then we blow up on some random person who doesn't matter. Because they're not blowing up like that on their spouses who may be controlling. They're not blowing up like that on their children who may be degrading them. They're blowing up on somebody random who, in their eyes, has no inherent value or meaning because that person doesn't dictate any aspect of their life. And I think for us to really address that and get through it, it's going to take a very large act of compassion for these women to understand that, like a toddler, when you see this behavior, it is something that they are trying to express their frustration and express their angst, express their upset at the injustice that they have been dealt, because on some level their entire life has been an injustice, at least an aspect of it, and this is just the straw that broke the camel's back type thing. This is just the final touch that was just too much, and whoever is around is the one that's going to get that treatment, that expression of their rage and their pent-up anger. So compassion for them, obviously, when you see something like that going on. Now, I know we live in the times of social distancing for a lot of people, so maybe a hug wouldn't be the best bet. Maybe that's not something they would be receptive to. But I would implore you to not react to their reaction. Obviously, they need to know that it's not acceptable. But instead of getting angry and calling them a dumb bitch or, a stupid Karen, when they react like that, if somebody could greet them with compassion, if somebody could have honesty and sincerity and caring when they make eye contact, I feel like, not for all, because obviously I feel that most of these have been suppressing emotions like this for years. But I think it's a really good start for some of them. And then once we get through that, we need to get help for these women. We need to get help for them in how they're storing up these emotions, how they're clinging to this hurt and to this darkness. And this is what is going to be known as shadow work. This is digging into the deep and understanding why you react and why you are triggered by certain issues, by certain circumstances, experience, places, people, things, why they get so enraged and upset at the fact that they are not getting their way here. And depending on the upbringing and the religious background and the amount of control that somebody else may still have in their lives, is going to be very huge on determining how willing they are going to be to discuss this with somebody else, to do this inner work. So I really feel like there is a need right now for people who are really willing to sit and work with this generation of wounded women. And I feel like because for me, healing doesn't work just I heal me. It goes forward and backwards through time and space. So when I do my own shadow work, I'm not just healing myself in this moment. That healing is sent back through generations before me who've also had that wounding, who may have passed that down, and it goes forward so that it stops and it can't continue in my line. And so by doing this work now on helping to heal these women who are so overlooked, who are so compartmentalized into who they are and who they had to be, by doing that work with them now, it is going to do leaps and bounds for healing our collective society right now in this time and space, and also going forward. Now, I don't know of any practitioners who are specifically working towards that. And if you know somebody who is, if that is their field of expertise, if that is their field where they are called and they can connect and make the biggest difference, then absolutely please drop a link, drop a comment, whatever you have, make a recommendation. As a resource for anybody who comes across this video in the future. If they have somebody like this in their life, then they can have access to that and hopefully get them started on the right path. Now, I feel very strongly in my movement that focusing on healing the divine feminine and connecting to her is paramount to our success, to creating a world that is in balance, where we are taking down the patriarchy, where we are starting to make moves, not just large, grandiose moves of women being empowered, but small things as well. The small things done daily by so many different people is just going to multiply and have this huge just ripple effect that will create changes that you wouldn't think something small could create. I don't really know too much. That was just a download that has been kind of percolating for several days that I wanted to speak on. Like I said, if you have resources for these women, if you know somebody who is doing that work, if you know a woman who is in your life who is struggling with this, because, and to be honest, I feel like we all do, especially if you are on the healing path, especially if you are on the path towards creating a world that is more compassionate and more loving and based on values, then I feel like you definitely have someone in your life who is like this. And it doesn't mean that you are going to see these moments where they act out, because like I said, I feel like it's usually towards somebody else. However, if you do, I think a clue for at home or in your personal life for you to know if they have the capability of being a Karen on somebody else would be the amount of passive aggressiveness that they have in their current life. So that would be like somebody offering to do something, offering help to somebody, and then after they give that help, they would grumble and complain the whole time about how hard it was or how much it took away from them. Those are, I think, pretty standard trademarks of a person who is feeling resentful for what they are having to give when it's not what they want to give, but they felt obligated that they had to. And I know that I have people in my life who are like that, and I wish that I had a perfect solution, a one-size-fits-all. I don't think that necessarily all of the women who fit in this category and necessarily the age group that I'm considering are going to be open to therapy, traditional therapy, because chances are growing up, it wasn't what it is now, right? It was completely different back then. There was definitely a stigma about it. I think anybody who is my age, 40 or younger, who is on this path has a very different view of what therapy, any type of healing modality can be. And if it's not something where they want to sit and talk it out with somebody because they feel awkward or they feel judged or they just feel too exposed and it brings too much discomfort to them, then I think this would be a perfect time to introduce some of the alternative healing modalities that we have in place now that the younger generations are very much involved in and are creating and improving and so lovingly willing to share with those who need it. So this would be stuff like Reiki. This would be stuff like sound therapy, acupressure, acupuncture, all of these things that these women could do in the privacy of their own home or in an environment that is more comfortable and less clinical than they are probably picturing when they think about getting help for their pent-up rage or their pent-up anger. And that may be a softer approach. Something as simple as yoga, taking them to a yoga class, getting them into breathing. Just breath work alone is very powerful on what it can release that is stored in the body. And it's just, maybe we should all just adopt a Karen. Maybe we all can identify a Karen that we have in our lives and make time each day, each week, each month, check in every now and then to invite them into some form of healing that you have personally had experience with that is going to help them make a change within, that is going to help give them a sense of control with their life. Maybe it is something as much as just taking them on a trip. Maybe they're hesitant to go do anything for themselves because they haven't, and that's a huge wound. They need to know that they're important and worthy and deserving of things that inspire them and create happiness within them. So maybe it's not about therapy. Maybe it's just about an experience shared with someone they love where they can be detached from the environment they're used to and truly shine as they always thought they would. Maybe that would be the way that we can get healing and just completely change their outlook within themselves, their outlook about the world, and just that immense healing that will come into that person, that individual, that family line, everybody who's involved with that person. And then if we did this on a grander scale, it would just completely change the dynamic of our world. You would suddenly, I believe, see all of these magnificent, powerful, go-getting, no one's getting in my fucking way women, once they are able to reclaim their inner power, once they're able to reclaim their inner voice and stand up and have the courage to say, I have done my life this way for this fucking long. It does not bring me joy. It does not bring me happiness. I love the people in my life, but now I'm living for me. Now it is time for me to step out of my shell of serving everyone else and going for what I want, choosing myself first, choosing my happiness first. Everything has been taken care of for years by me. Now somebody else can have a fucking turn so I can focus on myself. And that empowerment of the women who are feeling like they don't have that in their current lives is going to create such a dynamic shift, not only for them, but for the world around them. Because then all of that passion and all of that hope, all of that inspiration is going to be restored into themselves and then pushed outward into the world that is so different than when they maybe last had a chance to be themselves. It's so different to what routines and expectations they may be living in. And so I guess maybe what I'm calling for is the complete and total freedom of women who feel that they are enslaved by the system to be put and expected to perform a role that they did not choose for themselves, which ultimately is what I would call a woman who acts out irrationally and reacts to a small inconvenience, a Karen. And I guess at this point, I'm advocating for Karens. I'm advocating for us to get the help to see beyond the reactions, to get them the love and the space and the resources that they need to come back within, to connect within, to remember who the fuck they are, so that they can help us throw away this whole system that has been built that has kept them enslaved to roles they never intended to be stuck in. And I am not saying, I'm going to clarify this in case there's anybody who's confused, I am not saying that these women did not want to get married or have children. Not all of them, I am sure, and that they regret those roles or those choices. I am not saying that. What I am saying is they always knew that there was more to them than just that. And if they have been stuck where that is all they get to be, there is a lot of pain. There is a lot of tension. There is a lot of resentment that is just bubbling underneath the surface that needs to be addressed. This is something that we have to take on as a collective to help heal the collective. We cannot go forward in a progressive society where we talk about healing, where we talk about love, where we talk about compassion, and we do not address this whole generation, this whole years and years and years of subset of women who are not living in their full truth, who are not living in their full life. This is something that has to be addressed for us to move forward. And it's going to take all of us. There are not going to be one or two people that are going to be able to tackle this. This is going to be something that we all have to pitch in collectively to do. And I think that that's how it should be. I think that it may be too difficult for them to immediately step out and say, I'm done with this, I'm going to do it my way, if they don't have an example, if they don't have a resource who is saying, I see you. I see you. I don't see the role that you're in. I see the woman behind the role. I see everything that you have inside of you that you have not been able to express. And I want to help you with that. I want to give you an outlet for that. I want to give you a resource to process any lingering pain and trauma you may have over your life. And I want to give you an outlet for you to then enjoy and be inspired and create the life that you think you want, the life that you have dreamed of, the life that you know you deserve. And I think if we can all do that, I think if we can all, adopt a Karen, or at least adopt this mindset, take this perspective whenever you see something happening or a woman reacting irrationally, who you can kind of pinpoint. Maybe it's not just she's a entitled bitch, right? Maybe it's not. Maybe it is. She's used to throwing her fits and getting her way all the time. But we're at the point in society where we're starting to look deeper at everything. And this is going to be one of those things where we need to look deeper at it, and we need to start addressing the deeper issues. And I think that if we all can have a little more compassion, have a little more patience, have a little more time for these women to stop and really see them, then just that small change from each of us is going to create a huge ripple. And how exciting will it be to know that we have helped liberate these women who have done so much for us, these women who have been overlooked and underappreciated. And how powerful do you think they can be if we've already pictured them as these powerful, amazing, stable, dependable, can get whatever needs to be done women? If we already view them like that, and then we give them the tools they need to step into their truth, to step into their most powerful, authentic, creative, loving, healed selves. Can you imagine that world? Can you imagine the trickle effect onto everything? It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be outrageous. It's going to be part of the new earth that we are all trying to create. It is the way forward. The way forward is to heal all. And I think that this is definitely a category that we are easily annoyed with, that we just need to take a little more time and compassion and shift our perspective on, so that we can come to a solution that helps them and that eventually helps all of us. And I would love to hear what you think. I would love to hear if you have any resources or practitioners who are already focused on this. Maybe there are communities that we can set up for these women, older version of like Mom and Me, where these women are invited out into different circles, different aspects of life, so they can experience new things, such as the healing or just new activities with new friends. And that alone could be a small enough change in their life to give them back hope, to give them back inspiration, to remember to pursue their dreams as well, especially if they are at that point where they are feeling like they have been nothing but a servant to others. Then I think we should start to implement some things that will help this group of people, this group of women, really get the healing and the understanding and the compassion they need. So I would love to hear suggestions. I would love to hear what you think. If you have a different outlook on this situation or how to go about healing, I am always open to discussion. It's one of my favorite things to do is to think about these topics and discuss them with other educated and informed and heart-driven minds. So if that's you, please reach out, and I will talk to you again soon.